I like that.
Hey everyone, welcome to Let's Talk. I'm John, and today we're going to be talking about the 1997 neo-noir film Lost Highway and its brand new 4K Blu-ray release from the Criterion collection. But before we dive into that, if you are a fan of 4K Blu-ray reviews, movie reviews, tech reviews, and game reviews, we try to do them all here on the channel. Nothing would help us out more than by you liking this video and subscribing to the channel. So Lost Highway came out in 1997, is directed by David Lynch, and it stars Bill Pullman, Patricia Arquette, Baltzar-Getty, I hope I'm saying that right, Robert Loggia is in this, Richard Pryor, and a small role by Gary Busey, and even a small role by Henry Rollins, if people remember that name. So this film actually has a pretty stacked cast. David Lynch, for people who don't know, David Lynch is a very famous director who loves to really create, I believe, nightmares on screen. That all started in the late 70s with Eraserhead, and then he kind of shifted into more mainstream films with The Elephant Man and Dune. He did the original Dune from the 80s. And then he started to go back into what he was more comfortable with Blue Velvet and Wild at Heart. And then finally in the early 90s, he really took off where people really started to recognize his name with Twin Peaks, and then the 1992 prequel-sequel film to Twin Peaks Fire Walk With Me. And then after he did all that, as we got into the late 90s, he came out with Lost Highway in 1997. And then a couple years later, he came out with Mulholland Drive. So Lost Highway and Mulholland Drive, I always have felt like they were cousins to each other. They're both shot in LA. They feel very similar in tone. They both have stories that they don't give you all the answers to, and they're not supposed to, because one thing with David Lynch is he gives you a story, but he never gives you a direct story. A lot of his films are told non-linearly. A lot of his stories do not have a complete conclusion to the film. He leaves a lot of interpretation up to the viewer, and for me personally, that's what I love about David Lynch films and TV shows in general, is that David Lynch makes the viewer do a lot of the legwork, because he's never going to directly tell you what's going on. He wants you to watch the films that he puts out to you and for you to interpret them in your own way. And I'm going to give you guys my interpretation of Lost Highway at the very end of this film review, because the film itself is a very enjoyable film. I actually always have said that Lost Highway was my favorite David Lynch film, but after rewatching this, I think Mulholland Drive actually might be my favorite David Lynch film. Not that I don't love Lost Highway, because I still do, but I think after watching them both pretty recently and watching them as close together as I did, I think I prefer Mulholland Drive, but that's not to say Lost Highway isn't a great film. So the film starts off with Bill Pullman. He's married to Patricia Arquette, and they start to receive some weird VHS tapes. We don't know why, but these VHS tapes are showing them inside their house. It's showing the outside of the house, so it seems like they're being stalked. But pretty quickly into the film, it becomes revealed to us that Bill Pullman actually has killed Patricia Arquette. He gets sentenced to death row. He's going to die by electric chair. But then the film takes a hard left turn from there. And I don't want to reveal more than that, because this film really goes places that you just will not expect. That basic starting point to this film is nothing like what we're going to eventually get throughout this film. This film is told very much non-linearly. Halfway through a movie, or about third way through the movie, we actually switch lead actors, and then we follow their story throughout the entire film and what happened to them, and then we actually want to see what makes these characters overlap with each other. And all throughout this movie, another character that shows up is Robert Blake, who looks like, in this film, he looks like he's already been dead for 10 to 15 years.
As a matter of fact.
He looks like a legit vampire. His hair is black, his skin is just as white as mine, he's wearing black clothes. He's actually labeled in this film, his character is labeled the Mystery Man. So we never know exactly what he is, but I have thoughts as to why and who he is. But this movie is very much, in my opinion, a horror film. Even though it's labeled a neo-noir, I would say this is a psychological horror thriller film, because this gets under my skin like not many films can. It's just very uncomfortable. The subject matter itself is very uncomfortable. We linger on shots for a very long time to the point where it gets under your skin. It doesn't look good, the film, on purpose at points to really drive home that, like, you're not supposed to be comfortable watching. The story isn't comfortable, but it's just such a well-made film. The score is great. It's shot great. David Lynch knows how to lay out a story. The acting is phenomenal. Patricia Arquette especially has to play multiple roles, and she does a phenomenal job. Robert Loggia has never been more petrifying than he is in this. Never tailgate Robert Loggia is a lesson you should take away from this movie.
Do you know how many fucking car leaks it takes to stop a car at 35 miles an hour. Take fucking Charlie!
And then you get small roles by some of my personal favorite actors and one of my personal favorite stand-up comedians of all time. Richard Pryor plays Arnie in this, a small little role. And Gary Busey, who I expected to be just playing this way over-the-top Gary Busey role, especially when we first see him. He walks in, he's got a leather jacket on and the sunglasses. But really, he actually plays a really pulled-back, reserved, caring father in this. Surprisingly, in a movie with a lot of over-the-top acting, especially by Robert Loggia, you would think that Gary Busey, the king of overacting, would be playing this unhinged character, but he's not. He's very pulled back, and I really love his small little role in this. But overall, as a film, I can recommend Lost Highway if you haven't seen it. If you're not a fan of David Lynch, though, I don't recommend this. So if you're not a fan of Twin Peaks, Blue Velvet, this might not be for you. Or Mulholland Drive, this might not be your type of film. It very much really caters to people who are willing to put in a lot of work on it, because you're not going to get a clear-cut conclusion. You're going to have to really interpret it in your own way. And David Lynch himself has said that is his goal. He'll never tell you what his thoughts are on the film. He leaves it up to you to figure out. So with that being said, I want to give you guys my interpretation of the film. So this is a spoiler alert for the entire movie. If you haven't seen Lost Highway, this is your warning. Go check it out and then come back and give me your thoughts in the comment section below so we can discuss how we interpreted the film. But my interpretation of this film is that in the beginning of the movie, we see Bill Pullman. The first line of the movie is, Dick Laurent is dead. We have no idea who Dick Laurent is, but that is the opening and closing line to this movie is Dick Laurent is dead. We first see in the beginning of the movie that we see Bill Pullman receive those lines delivered to him from his perspective inside his house, but at the very end of the movie, we see that it's actually Bill Pullman in the future, or in the past, depending how you interpret this, going and telling him that Dick Laurent is dead. So it's actually him talking to himself. Now, what does that all mean? Well, as we know in this film, it's revealed that Bill Pullman has killed Patricia Arquette, his wife in the film. He gets sentenced to death row. In his jail cell, he's starting to get really bad headaches. He doesn't understand what's going on. He has no recollection that he actually killed Patricia Arquette. But we can see early on in the movie there's some cracks in their marriage. She's definitely cheating on him. She's cheating on him, in my opinion, with Robert Loggia's Dick Laurent. And he figures this out, and he loses his mind, and he kills his wife, and he has no recollection of doing it. And because he doesn't know he did it, his mind is trying to figure out and comprehend what it was actually capable of doing. So when the doctor gives him that sleeping medication, it just goes into a fever dream. And I believe that's from that point on, and that's why we get the character switch, and we see it from the character of Pete's perspective, and how Patricia Arquette plays another different character. Robert Loggia plays two characters as well. He's the Dick Laurent who Bill Pullman ends up killing at the very end. So my interpretation is very simple, actually, is that he's having a fever dream. He's trying to comprehend what he did. This is his mind's way of interpreting what happened. His own mind is just trying to wrap its head around what exactly happened, because he can't comprehend what he did. And that's where Robert Blake's character comes in, because I believe that is his conscience telling him. He's trying to lay out the clues for him to say, hey, you're the one who killed your wife. You did it for this reason, and this is what happened. And that's basically what my interpretation is just his own mind trying to come to grips with the fact that he killed his wife, and that's the entire film in general. But it's told, and you can poke so many holes in that too, and I am watching this film poking holes in my own theories, but that's the only conclusion I can logically come to from what I'm seeing on my screen from the very beginning, just the way that they lay out the early relationship to the later relationship that these two have. And we change lead characters and everything. It's the only conclusion that I can come to is that this man killed his wife, and he is just trying to comprehend it. And now for the rest of the movie, because of that medication that he received, he's just having a fever dream, and it's just we're just in his head, basically making up this entire storyline as to why his wife would cheat on him and why he would end up killing him. And that's my interpretation of this entire film. Now, you guys, I would love to hear your theories on that, so if you have any different theories than me, please drop those in the comment section below. I just love talking to people about their interpretations of film, so you don't have to agree with my interpretation, but that's what I came to while watching the film I believe this was my third time seeing it, and you know, it's a very challenging film, and it's not the most enjoyable, but I love to be challenged while watching movies, so that's why I came to the conclusion that I did. But anyway, guys, we're here to talk about the 4K Blu-ray that Criterion just released, and that's what we're going to talk about right now. Well, here it is. This is the Lost Highway Criterion 4K Blu-ray release, and it was one of my most anticipated of the years. I actually hadn't grabbed this on Blu-ray at all. I had never owned it before I grabbed this 4K, and I was very excited. Criterion has tackled David Lynch before. This is nothing new to them. They have Fire Walk with Me, Blue Velvet, Eraserhead. So Criterion has a good working relationship with David Lynch, and they did a great job on this 4K transfer. And I was very surprised on the packaging. I was expecting a clear case, just a regular Criterion case, but really to my surprise, they didn't go that route. They actually went a very, very nice design. So if you look, it's actually a hard slipcover. Very similar to the people, so if you have the Halloween slipcovers that came out, the hard casing, this is very similar to that. It's pretty much the same thing. You know, you slide it through the side instead of the top. It's got that hard cardboard on it. You look, you got the nice artwork on it on the back. It's actually not in yellow and gray and white. It's actually kind of red and black. I really like the design of that. This nice underneath packaging where you can also flip that open. You get its own artwork. You get some paperwork, some really nice paperwork, by the way. I would go through this, check out this book, especially if you're a fan. And then you get the 2-disc design. Now, I've never been a huge fan of overlaying these discs because you have to always take out the first 4K to get to the disc underneath. That always has bothered me, but that's just a minor complaint that I have. I do love that each disc has their own design on it. I've always championed that as much as I possibly can. And it's just a really nice packaging. Very surprised at how nice the packaging really was for this. I had already written it off in my head as just being a regular standard Criterion packaging because I didn't think many people were that big of fans of Lost Highway, even for its 25th anniversary. I just always, when I hear people talking about David Lynch, the first movies that usually come up are Blue Velvet, Eraserhead, or Twin Peaks. That's usually what people want to talk about, or Mulholland Drive, actually. But no one ever wants to talk about Wild at Heart or Lost Highway, which are two of my favorite David Lynch films, so I don't know what that says about me. So I just expected this to be one of their regular standard casing, and I was so surprised to see that they put that extra effort in. Now, the 4K itself does have HDR10 on it. It has Dolby Vision. The aspect ratio is 2.39, so that's going to have the two black bars on the top and bottom of your screen, so it's a widescreen format. The DTS 5.1 and the DTS 2.0 are your only two audio options on here, and they're going to be on your 4K Blu-ray disc. The 4K disc itself only has the film and your audio options to set up. The Blu-ray disc will contain all your extras and everything is on that second Blu-ray disc. And the actual transfer of the film to 4K, it's the best that I have ever seen it look, by far. It actually looks beautiful. But there was some early scenes in the film where they're in their house, or their apartment, I guess, and it looked extremely grainy to me. Very early in the film, it's pretty much in the first 5 to 6 minutes of the movie, I noticed that it looked very grainy, and I didn't understand why. I didn't think the picture was actually that great, and I checked it out on two of my TVs. I checked it out on my 4K Sony 950H, and then I checked it out on my OLED C1. And I noticed that same problem with the grain. It wasn't as noticeable on my OLED as it was on my LED, so if you have an LED, it might be a little bit more noticeable, but it definitely was noticeable to the point where I was like, I don't know if I love the way this film looks. And then they actually, once they got out of that scene and out of the house and the apartment that Bill Pullman and Patricia Arquette share, I thought it actually cleared up and became actually a beautiful and stunning 4K. It was really just that one scene, and not even the entire scene, so it was only a few shots, but it was definitely noticeable. So if you are watching it and your first interpretations are of that scene, it does kind of take you out for just a second. It's not going to be make or break, because overall visually I think that the Dolby Vision does a very good job of cleaning up this film. Now the Blu-ray, which is just a compressed version of the 4K without Dolby Vision or HDR, actually fixed that problem. So that leads me to believe that the issue is from the Dolby Vision that is actually causing that. So it's probably just a lighting issue where it should be toned down a little bit, and that will probably clear up that grain a little bit. But that's just my best guess. I'm not 100% sure what happened. But it's weird that the 1080p Blu-ray in that one scene looked better than the 4K, because if you compare them side by side, the rest of the film, the 4K looks so much better with the Dolby Vision on compared to that 1080p Blu-ray. So it's really just that one scene. It's probably just a minor issue. That just want to take note of that real quick. And the audio itself, the 5.1 that's on here, actually did some great work. Now, it does start in stereo 2.0, so you might want to make sure you check that before you guys actually start the film, because Criterion always likes to start it in the original audio because they're really into preserving film. So the 5.1, which is new, you have to go into the settings and switch that yourself. And that 5.1, I think, does a phenomenal job. I actually think it really adds to the film. There were points where I was hearing the sound throughout my entire room. It was really bouncing off the ceilings and coming towards me, which I thought was really well, especially since this isn't an Atmos track. It's just a regular DTS 5.1, and I thought they did a great job with the audio. I was very surprised. You know, this is a very good score with a lot of needle drops in here, and you're going to want the best audio possible for that. And surprisingly, I was very skeptical of the audio. I thought they did a phenomenal job with that yet again. Now, the extras. All the extras, like I said, are on the second disc, and there is an 80-minute feature from 1997 about David Lynch on there, so right away, I was in. That for me is the king of the extras. Now, that's not a new extra, though. Actually, all these extras aren't new. They're previous interviews. They're just all stockpiled on that second disc. Everything. There's stuff from 97, stuff from 2018. There's plenty of extras. They're just not all new extras. They're just all compiled together to go with Lost Highway now. But you can find these on previous releases or on the internet. They're nothing new, nothing that is just standard and stocked for this release. They're not brand new. And that could be disappointing for some, but I actually have never seen any of these, and it was really cool to get a look at them. And I'm very happy with the extras overall. These are the kind of extras that work best for me. There's a featurette on there. There's a 43-minute interview with David Lynch that I think you guys might want to check out because he is one of the most fascinating directors of all time. Just getting in his mind is incredible. So checking these out and trying to figure out David Lynch as the human being that he is, I think you guys will get a kick out of that. And the extras are great. So overall, how do I feel about this Criterion 4K Blu-ray release? I was not blown away by the visuals, but I can honestly say they're very good. They're a huge improvement from what we've gotten in the past. It's not the greatest Criterion 4K transfer that I've ever seen. It's nothing that's going to knock your socks off, but it is good, and it's definitely the best version, the definitive version of this film visually that you're going to see. Now, audio-wise, that is also very good. The extras are also very good. The standout for me is the packaging. I think they did a great job packaging this. So if you're a fan of Criterion and you're worried about how this is going to look on your shelf, this is going to look awesome on your shelf. That is the standout to this, is the packaging. I love the extra effort that was put into it. I'm very happy to own this film finally in my collection. I'm a huge fan of Lost Highway. It's going to look great right next to Mulholland Drive, which I haven't upgraded to the 4K yet. And I want to do a video actually comparing the Blu-ray and the 4K of that, just to see if that's worth the upgrade for me and for you. So maybe down the line we'll eventually get to that, because I'm also a huge fan of Mulholland Drive. I'm a huge fan of David Lynch, and if you guys are a fan of David Lynch and you haven't seen Lost Highway, I can highly recommend you go and grab this Criterion 4K right now. I believe they have a 50% off sale in November, so if you can hold out till November and you're wondering, what should I grab? I can recommend Lost Highway, and I'm going to give this overall packaging, I'm going to give this an 8.5 out of 10. I think it's definitely worth your time and money, but again, your mileage may vary based on how you feel about David Lynch. And if you guys want to pick up this 4K from Criterion Collection, we actually have an Amazon affiliate link that's in our description below. It costs no extra money to you, but it really does help the channel out. So if you buy it through Amazon, please click that link, grab it from there. Sometimes Amazon has some really good sales on Criterion if you keep an eye out on it. But guys, that's going to do it here for me today. Please make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and tell all your friends.